What's up, everybody? It's Icebreaker here, back with another video. I'm just in the mood to talk about NHL UFA signings. I know the Stanley Cup Final is still going on right now, and the offseason is some ways away, but I'm just very interested to see where a lot of these players are going to sign in the offseason and what type of contracts they're going to get. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think. So, first set of players here. First, I got Johnny Gaudreau. I think he's going to the Devils, honestly. Close to home. I think he's going to get near $10 million. If he gets more, wouldn't surprise me, but I just feel like, I don't know. I'm just not having a good feeling about him re-signing with the Flames. Obviously, they're a contending team, so if they want to bring him back, they can. They do have a lot of cap space to bring him back, but I just think he wants to go back home. The Devils are an up-and-coming team. He can play with guys like Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt. I just like the fit there. The Devils are on the rise as well, so they're going to be a pretty good team in the near future. So, yeah, I think he's going to New Jersey. Yeah, Bergeron stays with the Bruins. He is their captain. He's their leader. I can't really see him going elsewhere. He is a little bit older, so a 2-year deal. Under $6 million is about right. 65-point player this season with 25 goals. Bruins are still a good team, and he's a big part of that. Can't see him going anywhere else. Philip Forsberg, hot take. I think the Islanders are a perfect fit for him. Matt Barzal, he needs a winger, and he is the perfect goal scorer to fit along with him. The speedy center that Matt Barzal is. Obviously, Philip Forsberg, 42 goals this past season, 84 points. He should be making north of $8 million at least. I think that's a very fair cap hit for him. You look at the Islanders, firing Barry Trotz. Hopefully they become a little bit more free in terms of their offensive game. Guys like Matt Barzal will get back to, point per game form like his rookie season. And just not a lot of really great wingers that he has on the Islanders. So I think Philip Forsberg is that perfect fit. Giroux, I'm getting Ottawa vibes. Obviously, going back near his hometown. Ottawa's a team on the rise. He can be a mentor to guys like Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson and guys like that. Tim Stützle. They're a team that were injured riddled throughout the entire season. I think they could have been a lot better than people expected, and I think as soon as next season they could be a team that makes the playoffs. For Nazem Kadri, I think the Anaheim Ducks are definitely a team that I'm looking at as potentially a dark horse candidate. They have like $40 million in cap space, and I just think they're one of the few teams that can afford a guy like Kadri, who's coming off a career season with 87 points in 71 games with the Colorado Avalanche. If it were me, I would want to stay in Colorado if I was him, but I just don't think the Avalanche have the money to afford a guy like Nazem Kadri because he's going to be commanding quite a bit based off the year he had. I also kind of like to fit in Anaheim. He's just, be great as a second-line center behind Trevor Zegras, and they got a lot of really young, solid pieces there already, and they're looking to be a very good team in the short-term future. I just feel like it's a good fit. I know a lot of people are saying like Seattle or Philadelphia. Philadelphia can't even afford a guy like him based on the year he had. Seattle, I guess there's a fit. He could be like the best player on that team potentially. But I don't know. I kind of like the fit for Anaheim. I don't see him as like a number one centerman if he's a number two guy, kind of like a Ryan Kessler. I think it makes a lot of sense for Anaheim. Billy Huzo for Edmonton, very easy decision there, a very easy prediction, I should say. Mikko Koskinen's gone overseas. Mike Smith probably not coming back. I don't know, 41 years old. It might be tough to see him coming back at this point. But they need a starting goaltender now. Billy Huzo definitely checks the boxes. The goaltending market not very deep this offseason. So 27-year-old Billy Huzo coming off a pretty good year. 2.56 goals against average, .919 save percentage. I think he's a good fit on the Oilers. Now, Vincent Trocheck, I got him going back to Pittsburgh. This is just a gut feeling I have. I just think the opportunity to play behind Sidney Crosby has got to be, too good to pass up for him. Especially the Penguins are still a great team. You should be getting around a 6-year deal, $5.5 million coming off a 21-goal, 51-point season. To play behind Sidney Crosby, they still got a really solid team there. A lot of great young players. Jake Gensel, obviously. John Klingberg to Vancouver is a bit of an interesting one, but I do think the Canucks do need a right shot defenseman, a guy, a quarterback, the second power play unit, obviously. Quinn Hughes being the quarterback of that first power play unit. But John Klingberg, I think, a guy who's coming off a 47-point season, should be getting roughly Jeff Petrie money. I mean, Jeff Petrie's not coming off the greatest year, and I think the agent would be like, well, if this guy is getting that much money, why can't my client John Klingberg, I mean, $6.5 million over 4 years seems very fair. You can put him on the second pair beside Oliver Ekman-Larsson. They complement each other well, I would think. Klingberg the more offensive and OEL the more defensive guy. And you look at the Canucks, their team on the rise, looking to maybe even make a jump to the playoffs next season. I think they probably could under a full season under Bruce Boudreau. So yeah, I like the Canucks as a fit for Klingberg. Chris Letang, I think he stays in Pittsburgh. Ultimately, I do think they're going to come to an agreement. 3-year deal, $7 million is a lot of money against the cap, but he is coming off a 68-point season, one of the better seasons of his career in 78 games. I just don't see where else he'd want to go. I just feel like this is the ideal fit for him to stay in Pittsburgh. The other team would be Montreal, but like a team that's expected to rebuild and doesn't look like they'd be contending for the next 2-3 years. Just doesn't make sense for Montreal to throw money at that guy, especially since he's like 35 years old. I don't see the fit there. So I think Pittsburgh is really the only place he can really go. Andre Palat, I don't know how they're going to make this work because last I checked, they have like literally no cap space, but I think they have to re-sign Andre Palat. Tampa Bay Lightning. They have to re-sign him. He's just too important to that team. He's a great complementary piece, the perfect complementary piece to guys like Nikita Kucherov and Steven Stamkos. We just see the chemistry he's had, even in these playoffs, once again, stepping up in the biggest moments. Coming off an 18-goal, 49-point season. Shouldn't be too expensive. 5 years, $5 million roughly, I think is very fair. For me, I would say trade a guy like Alex Killorn, who's obviously, roughly the same age, but, he hasn't shown up quite as much in the playoffs. He has no goals, I believe, to this point. I think that's a guy you kind of have to shed the cap and part ways with him to fit in a guy like Andre Palat back into the lineup. I don't see why he would want to leave Tampa Bay, and if they can make it happen, they better make it happen because I think he's very important to that team. I think it's in their best interest, both parties, the Tampa Lightning and Andre Palat, if they can make this work and Andre Palat can stay in Tampa, Florida. And next, Evgeny Malkin. I think hot take. That's why I had Trocheck sign with Pittsburgh to be the second line center because I think Malkin, of the two between him and Chris Letang, I think he's the one that ends up going to the New York Rangers. I think the Rangers are a contender. They proved it in these playoffs all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. Yeah, I think there's gonna be more of a dispute with the Penguins in terms of the term and the money. But ultimately, yeah, I think he's gonna end up walking, and I don't think any other team is really gonna give him a huge salary increase at all. He had like $9 million against the cap. So yeah, he's not going to get more than that. I think I'd be surprised if he gets north of 7. Just consider the fact that he's like 35, 36 years old. Not really the player he once was. Can't stay healthy for the life of him, even though he was a point per game. But still, I just don't consider him like, a franchise centerman anymore. And he can be a perfect 1-2 punch with Mika Zibanejad down the middle, playing with Artemi Panarin. Could be enticing, and obviously the Rangers, who are a great team, is another opportunity for him to win another Stanley Cup, but it wouldn't be in Pittsburgh, obviously. Yeah, I kind of like the Rangers vibes. I see them losing a lot of guys in free agency, so I think they'll have room for a guy like Malkin, I believe. Then Rickard Rakell to the Kings, going back to California, but LA, I think they just lack some goal-scoring depth with Dustin Brown retiring. A spot has opened up on the wing, and obviously he can provide a solid top 9 role on that Kings team, coming off a 20-goal, 41-point season. Played pretty well with the Penguins in the regular season. Didn't really play much in the playoffs because he just hurt. But yeah, roughly a $4 million cap hit. That's about right for a 20-goal scorer. And, he plays a full season, should be about that as well. 20-goal season. And obviously the Kings need offense. He can provide that, like I said. Another option on the wing for them. And then Max Domi to the Bruins. He just looks like the type of guy would fit really well with the Boston Bruins. He's gritty. He's an agitator. He can fight, drop the gloves when needed. Not the biggest guy, but he can throw the body around, can be a very nasty physical presence, but also decent offensive player. I don't think he's going to be the Max Domi of Montreal where he had that 72-point season, but I do think, you can you can plug him anywhere in the lineup. He's a good, solid play driving winger. Obviously 11 goals, 39 points, nothing to really brag about or anything, but still fairly solid player. I would think he'd be a good fit, especially with Brad Marchand being out. Maybe there's an opportunity for him to take on a top line role potentially, or he can, create on his own second line with guys like Jake DeBrusk, Craig Smith, some, solid 15, 20 goal scorers. Yeah, he just screams Boston to me. I just think that's a great fit for him. And then Evander Kane, having re-signed with Edmonton, it's the perfect fit. He's played amazingly there since he got there. The 22 goals, 39 points in 43 games. The shortened time he was there in the regular season, obviously nearly a goal per game in the playoffs. I mean, who wouldn't want to play with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, obviously, right? I don't see a lot of teams really jumping at him because of his off-ice issues. And Edmonton, I don't think they'll be able to have too much of an issue at re-signing him. They should be getting him at a 4-year deal. $5 million might be a bit of an underpayment based on the way he's played, but I really don't see him commanding much more money because no one's going to re-sign him. I just think he'll be satisfied enough to get what he can get in Edmonton. Just he's in the right situation. The system's good for him. I just think the fit's there, and that's all that really matters to him, I think. And then a lot of guys that have re-signing, like David Perron, I think he could take maybe a little bit of a pay cut, coming off a 27-goal, 57-point season. 3-year deal, $4.5 million. He's been in blue for the majority of his career. I can't see him really leaving. I just think the Blues are a good team. He's a good fit there. Just makes sense to keep him. Same with Darcy Kemper. He's had a good season. 5-year deal, around $6 million, I think is fair. 921 save percentage this past year. Didn't play so well in the playoffs thus far. Right now they're in the Stanley Cup Finals. We'll see what happens. But the goalie market, kind of dry. Kemper is obviously a fit. He's going to be a priority for the Avs to re-sign, so not a problem there. Riley Smith, bit of a weird one. I think he can go to Buffalo. Sabres could use another solid veteran presence on the wing. 16 goals, 38 points in the regular season, just 56 games, I believe. And another veteran, another decent 20-25 goal scorer. Could be a good guy on the wing to elevate younger players on that team, like Peyton Krebs or Dylan Cousins. I think can definitely benefit playing with a guy like Riley Smith on like a second line role. Yeah, based on the year he had, I don't think he's going to command a ton of money. Buffalo obviously has a good amount of cap space, so like 3 years, a little less than $5 million, I think is about right. Jack Campbell, I think he stays in Toronto. He's obviously their guy. He's their starting goaltender. Had a rough second half of the season. The numbers would suggest he didn't play that well in the playoffs. But yeah, I still think he's their starter. Like I said, goaltending. Not a lot of options to go after unless they make a trade for a guy like Matt Murray or John Gibson. That's what I've been hearing in the rumor mill. But no, I think they're going to keep Campbell. 5-year deal, $5.5 million. He's 30 years old. I just, that's not really a huge contract, and I don't think he's going to be getting anything significant, anything more significant than that. I think it makes all the sense in the world for them to keep him. Then we got Ben Sherratt. Again, I think he stays in Florida. He's been a perfect fit, and also I think there's a little bit more pressure for them to re-sign him just based on the fact that they gave up quite a bit to get him from Montreal. 2-year deal, probably shouldn't get much more than $3 million. He might even get less. But he's coming off a career season offensively, 9 goals, 26 points. But yeah, he's been a good fit. I can plug him in on a second or third pair. I think he's fine. Nichushkin, he's a priority guy for Colorado, I think. One of those glue guys like Andre Palat, like I mentioned earlier. Just the perfect complementary piece to the stars on that team in Colorado, like McKinnon and Landeskog and Rantanen and all that. Basically coming off a 52-point season in 56 games, 25 goals. 5-year deal, $5.5 million, I think is very respectable. Very possibly gets a little bit more because he's a more complete player. He plays both ends of the puck, one of the better defensive wingers in the game, in my opinion. And then Andrew Kopp, I could see him re-signing in New York because he was a really good fit there. But ultimately, I do think that he could go back home to Michigan, sign with the Red Wings, be a very key veteran presence there, and make that team that much better. I think he's going to get a very, very solid contract, 6 years, definitely somewhere in the 5s, I think. Yeah, he plays in all situations, power play, penalty kill. He can move him up and down the lineup, plays all positions up front. Yeah, this one's a bunch of like sort of random areas. Josh Manson, I think he stays in Colorado. He's not going to command a ton of money, I don't think. Yeah, 3 years, shouldn't get that much more than $3 million a year, in my opinion. I think he's good for second or third pair defenseman. Now, Ryan Strome, I think he's going to go to Columbus. And the reason I say that, I just think they lack a bit of center depth. But the Blue Jackets, they don't have a ton of great offensive talent outside of like Patrick Laine, maybe Oliver Bjorkstrand's a pretty solid player. But Ryan Strome could be a guy who can step in, play on be a number one center there, be pretty enticing to play with a guy like Patrick Laine. Maybe that could elevate his production a bit. But yeah, he should be getting, probably a 4-year deal, maybe a 5-year deal, in the $5 million range, $5.5 million range. He's just a very solid player. 21 goals, 54 points this past season. It'd probably be pretty enticing to also play with a lot of the young guys on that team. Zach Werenski and Cole Sillinger and Ken Johnson maybe makes an impact next season. I don't know. I think Columbus is more of an underrated target. They can definitely be in the running for a guy like Ryan Strome who could, provide a better center depth for that Blue Jackets team. Then Fleury, obviously, signing one more year, final year in the NHL, finishing his career where it started in Pittsburgh. Just love to see this story. He shouldn't command that much money at this stage of his career, 37 years old. If he gets $3 million, maybe even less than that, because he's probably more likely than not going to be the backup to Tristan Jarry. But yeah, I think that would be a feel-good story if he ends his career in Pittsburgh. Ilya Mikheyev, kind of a weird destination, but San Jose, a team that kind of lacks offensive consistency. Not a ton of wing depth outside of Timo Meier. When you're a 20-goal scorer, you get roughly $4 million a season. I feel like that's the right range. And Mikheyev could be a guy that potentially breaks out in a much bigger role, top 6 role in San Jose, playing on those wings with some pretty good centers. Logan Couture, Thomas Hertl, not bad players. So yeah, he could be a guy that kind of low-key breaks out and kind of like Alexander Barabanov, who ironically enough came from the Toronto Maple Leafs and was in a bit of a sheltered role. So this is a guy that could break out in a much bigger role. I think he has the skill set. Phil Kessel, got him going to Nashville. I don't know why. Nashville's a kind of an underrated city. I mean, I feel like I'm getting vibes. He's more chill. He's more satisfied with how his career's gone. He's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. If he could even return to Arizona, it wouldn't surprise me that much. For Nashville, this is a team that's still pretty good. UC Saros, when healthy, a top 5 goalie. They got some good players that he could play around. Matt Duchene, Mikael Granlund, Ryan Johansson, very good centers, all 3 of them. Obviously, because I have Philip Forsberg going to the Islanders, there's definitely a room of opportunity for Phil Kessel to maybe take on a top line role. He's still at this stage of his career. I mean, only 8 goals in 82 games, but 52 points, I believe. Not terrible, right? And next I got Neo Niederreiter signing with the Capitals, around a 3-year deal, $4.5 million. I just feel like, 24 goal guy, 44 points. He's going to command quite a bit of cap hit. And Carolina's a cheap organization. I don't know. I just don't think they're going to want to pay him what he deserves. But a team like Washington, who has enough cap space, I think their defense is pretty good. They could probably afford a guy like Justin Schultz as well to be re-signed. Again, the goaltending market, I don't know if I see it, even though they could be looking for a goalie. They might have to trade for one because I don't see them really signing anybody unless Fleury decides, I'm going to go to Washington, but I don't see that happening. Yeah, what they could do is just shore up the offensive depth. Obviously, they're top 6. When healthy, it's among the best in the league. But to shore up that third line, get another 20-goal scorer down there, play him along with Lars Eller and Connor Sheary. I think Niederreiter would be a perfect fit in Washington, who's still going to be a good team next season, I think. So next with PK Subban, I just get Vegas vibes from him, to be honest. He's 34 years old. He's not the defenseman he once was. So I don't expect him to get more than like a 2-year deal, roughly $2 million. The Vegas thing, I kind of get those vibes because of his personality, first and foremost. He's very outgoing, outspoken, loquacious guy. I don't know. I feel Vegas. I feel Vegas here. I don't know why. But in terms of where he fits on this team, I mean, they're pretty deep on the blue line. Obviously, they're top 4D. Shea Theodore, Alex Pietrangelo, Brady McNabb, and Alec Martinez. But there's definitely room for him to play on the third pair, beside a guy like Zach Whitecloud. Now, Vegas didn't really have any cap space until they trade away Evgeny Dadonov for Shea Weber. And obviously, Shea Weber, who's not going to be playing, could stash him on the LTIR so he won't count against the cap. So now the Golden Knights do have some cap space to, sign a couple of guys. PK Subban could be another depth defenseman. Maybe they'll go after a forward as well. But and then there's some wiggle room here. So that's why, Vegas is a possibility for PK. This last one's kind of more so randoms. Mason Marchment, I don't know why. I just feel Philly. The Flyers to me are kind of just this organization that they tend to just make moves for the sake of making moves. Now, they don't really have a ton of cap space, so I don't think they can really go after any big time free agents. But Mason Marchment is coming off a very good season, 47 points in 54 games. Florida's not going to be able to afford him. Straight up, they can't. After the season he had, it just seems very unlikely that he's going to want to sign there for cheap. Like, he should go get his money, because I don't know if he's going to have another season like that. Philly seems to strike me as this team that just willing to do whatever it takes to remain relevant, because right now they're kind of stuck in no man's land. They're not a very good team anymore, I don't think. I think they should rebuild, but I think Philly's going to pull off some weird move like this, signing a Mason Marchment to fill in on the top six role, and maybe bolster their offense a bit, which was nearly non-existent last season. So yeah, he should probably get nearly $4.5 million, maybe a bit higher than that based on the year he had, because he was nearly a point per game. Let's not forget that, right? So he could be getting like $6 million, but obviously he hasn't really proven he's that player just yet. So, but I mean, 4-year deal seems fair, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Philly vibes. Philly's a weird team to me. I just feel like they're the type of team to sign a guy like Marchment. So yeah, I think for Burakovsky next up, Calgary seems to be the fit here. Now this comes down to a couple things. One, it's Johnny Gaudreau, obviously. If he does not decide to come back to Calgary and goes to a team like the Devils, they're going to need a guy to replace him on that top line. I think Burakovsky, coming off a 61-point season, kind of fits the bill. He fits fine on a top line role in Calgary. You can play with Lindholm or Tkachuk, and Tkachuk is another guy they have to re-sign as a restricted free agent. He's probably going to require a lot to keep him, right, because of the money. But yeah, for Burakovsky, 5-year deal, near $6 million is fair based off of his production last season. It's hard for me to believe that the Colorado Avalanche are going to want to re-sign him. Well, actually, they probably want to re-sign him, but I just don't see the fit there anymore. I just think with a lot of the free agents that they have coming up, they're going to have their priorities set on guys like Darcy Kemper, who's obviously the starting goalie. Josh Manson, he's affordable as a number 4, number 5 defenseman. And then Valerie Nichushkin obviously is their most important forward that they re-sign. Their best complementary player. They won't be able to afford a guy like Kadri, but Andre Burakovsky, just because he's kind of been pushed down the lineup, it just makes no sense. 60-point player, going to be getting near $6 million most likely per season. It just makes no sense to have that type of contract playing on your third line with a guy like Arturi Lehkonen, who's now taking his spot in the top 6. I don't see the fit for him anymore in Colorado. I just think he needs a bigger role elsewhere, and I feel like a team like Calgary, where if they don't have Johnny Gaudreau, as much it would suck, at least you have a consolation prize, right? Let's not get it twisted. Burakovsky is still a very good player. And these last few guys are more depth pieces. Paul Stastny, Winnipeg's the vibe for me. A 1-year deal. He fit well with them. 21 goals, 45 points this past season. Sign him to, just under $4 million is fine for a 1-year deal. And if Winnipeg's not in a position to make the playoffs, you can flip him for assets at the deadline. This is a fairly, low risk, high reward contract, I guess. Evan Rodriguez to Chicago. This is more kind of like, again, stepping into a bigger role kind of thing, because he was playing on the third line Pittsburgh, but he had an amazing season, 19 goals, 43 points. There's an opportunity there in Chicago, who kind of lacked the offensive depth outside of Kane and DeBrincat, for him to step into a top 6 role and kind of prove to everyone that last year was not a fluke, and he can still be a very solid middle 6 producer on a team like the Blackhawks. But obviously, it's a weird one for me, a weird signing, because he's just like a third line player to most. But 3 years, just over $3 million, I think is roughly in the ballpark of what he should be getting, because he had a pretty good season, all things considered. Next is Frank Vatrano. Again, a weird one, but I think Seattle is kind of the vibe here. He's a bit of a younger guy, but 18 goals, 32 points. Not an amazing season by any means, but there's still a little bit of upside for him only being like 27, 28 years old. Seattle is a team that's still trying to find themselves into the league, being only their second season that they'll be entering. So Vatrano could be a guy that, steps into a much bigger role. Potentially a breakout player. We'll see what happens, because with these new franchises, there's always a couple of like surprise stories, surprise breakout players. Maybe there's a big opportunity for Frank Vatrano to prove to everyone that he's more than just a third line guy, I guess. And lastly, I got Nick Paul and Matthias Janmark, both signing with the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes, I just feel like they're going to let Trocheck and Niederreiter go, because they strike me as a very cheap organization, just based off all the moves that they've done in the past. I mean, I know they threw money at Kotkaniemi, but apart from that, like not paying Nedeljkovic and, amongst other things, like not willing to pay Dougie Hamilton. I don't know. There's always been an issue with paying their players in Carolina. So I feel like they're not going to be able to play those guys, but some lesser players, but still solid depth pieces for much cheaper. They're going to need some replacements in that lineup. So I think Nick Paul makes a lot of sense. Tampa Bay is not going to be able to afford him for sure. And he's earned his money based on the way he's played. Yeah, Nick Paul is obviously a great depth piece, and he could be a good replacement. You can play him on a second or third line. Yeah, 3-year deal, just over $3 million makes sense. I mean, 16 goals, 32 points. And also, GMs like to look at what you do in the playoffs, and they can get you paid. Like Barclay Goodrow got paid. Or Yoel Armia, what he did in the Stanley Cup final for the Montreal Canadiens. He was very big on that fourth line. He got a deal well above $3 million, which obviously was an overpayment looking back at it. But yeah, I could see a similar situation for Nick Paul in that regard. Lastly, Matthias Janmark, 25 points in 67 games, 9 goals only. Yeah, just another depth piece they'll have to replace him with. You can fit him in on a third or fourth line because, Carolina's a very deep team, but the other young guys will probably have to step up. Jesperi Kotkaniemi maybe takes a top 6 center role, and then you look at Martin Necas, who needs to have a much better season. They're probably going to move him up the lineup. So, Nick Paul and Matthias Janmark play where they should be playing, and that's in bottom 6 roles. So that's basically going to wrap up my predictions on where I feel a lot of these guys are going to sign in the offseason. Obviously, purely speculation. I don't claim to be a wizard or claim to be like right about this stuff or predicting the future or anything like that. I don't have a crystal ball. But yeah, I like all things hockey, all things NHL. It's fun to speculate. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys feel, what your opinions are, and where you feel certain players will sign in the offseason and how you think the offseason will play out. All thoughts are okay, whether you agree or disagree. Let me know in the comments. I'm open to discussion. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this little video, and I'll talk to you again when I post in the next one. See you guys later.